Dawn comes quickly on the dry plains of East Africa. When I opened my eyes, the horizon had already shifted from deep purple to pale orange. There were no sounds of traffic, no vibrating phones, only the wind moving through thorn bushes and the distant calls of unfamiliar birds. I was staying with the Hadzabe, one of the last hunter-gatherer communities that still maintain an ancient way of life in Africa. They live near Lake Eyasi in Tanzania, and for thousands of years their lifestyle has changed very little. The night before, I slept beside their campfire on bare ground. No tents. No mattresses. Just a few animal skins and a sky full of stars. What surprised me most was the morning pace. No one seemed rushed. No one was chasing time. Everything unfolded slowly, naturally, as if they were moving in rhythm with the breathing of the land itself. A group of hunters began gathering together. Each carried a bow and several arrows. The arrows looked simple, but their tips were coated with poison made from tree sap. One of the men gestured for me to follow. We left the camp and walked into a low, scrubby forest. The ground was full of signs, antelope tracks, rabbit prints, ground birds. But the Hadza hunters saw much more than I could. They stopped beside a bush. One man crouched down and touched the soil. He pointed to a small patch of freshly disturbed dirt. Porcupine. Just one word. But to them, it told an entire story. African porcupines often dig burrows under tree roots or soft soil mounds. And when they run, they leave a very distinctive trail. The hunters began quietly following the signs. We walked for nearly an hour. The sun climbed higher, and heat slowly settled over the dry land. Suddenly the man in front stopped. Before us stood a large dirt mound with several small burrow entrances. The hunters whispered. The porcupine was inside. One hunter quickly started a small fire at the entrance of the burrow. Dry branches were stacked together, and smoke was blown deep into the tunnel. I immediately understood the strategy: smoke the animal out. We waited. No one spoke. Only the crackling fire and the thin streams of smoke sliding into the hole. Then suddenly, a dark shape burst out of the burrow, quills raised like a living ball of needles. Arrows flew almost at the same moment. The porcupine ran a few meters, spinning in circles as it tried to escape. But the poison had already begun to work. Within minutes, it lay still on the ground. There was no loud cheering. Just a few satisfied smiles. It was a good meal. They didn't carry the porcupine back to camp. Everything was prepared right there. One hunter used a knife to separate the skin and quills. Another built a larger fire. The meat was cut into chunks and placed on wooden sticks like a natural grill. Soon the smell of roasted meat drifted through the dry forest. Someone also found wild roots and a few forest fruits. After roasting briefly, the roots softened and were pulled apart into thin strands that almost resembled spaghetti. The porcupine meat cooked quickly, charred on the outside, tender and fatty inside. We sat in a circle around the fire. There were no plates. No forks. Each person simply broke off a piece and passed it along. It was a raw, primal flavor, something I had never experienced before. After a while, a few children from the tribe came running after smelling the food. They sat down naturally and waited for their turn. No one fought over it. Here, food is always shared. After the meal, I followed a few children deeper into the nearby bushland. They carried small bows. At first, I thought they were just playing. But they were actually hunting. One boy, maybe 8 years old, pointed at a patch of grass. A small bird flew up. His arrow shot after it. It missed, but he simply laughed and kept running. For Hadza children, hunting skills aren't something taught in lessons. They're simply part of growing up. Soon they caught a few small lizards and a bush mouse. One boy quickly built a small fire and roasted them right there, just like the adults. I watched them laughing, their hands covered in ash and dust. There was something deeply natural about the way they were growing up in the wild. Later in the afternoon, a group of adults decided to walk toward a nearby lake to collect water and look for small fish. I followed them again. The path passed through thorny bushes and cracked dry soil. After nearly an hour, the vegetation slowly changed. The grass grew taller. The ground became damp. Then the water appeared. A wide, silent lake, so still that its surface barely moved. Before stepping closer, the Hadza hunters stopped. An older man picked up a stone and threw it hard into the water. We waited. At first I didn't understand why. Then someone pointed toward the far shoreline. A long ripple moved across the surface. And then I saw it. A long head, with only the eyes and nostrils above the water. A crocodile. No one panicked. But the atmosphere changed immediately. One hunter signaled for me to step back. The crocodile slowly swam toward the shore, barely making a sound. If you didn't look carefully, you might think it was just a floating log. A young Hadza man picked up several large stones. Two others stood on each side of the bank, watching the water closely. Then they began throwing the stones. Strong, precise throws that splashed just in front of the crocodile's head. It paused. More stones landed in the water. On the way back, one man laughed and said something short in his language. Another hunter translated it for me. Out here, if you're not careful, the crocodile will eat dinner before we do. By the time we returned to camp, the sun was already setting. The sky turned deep red behind the thorny acacia trees. A new fire was lit. The remaining porcupine meat was reheated. Children ran around the camp laughing in the firelight. I sat beside the hunters who had spent the entire day with me. One of them handed me another piece of roasted meat. Far above us, the African sky filled with stars, more than I had ever seen anywhere else. I thought about everything I had witnessed that day, a porcupine hunt using smoke, children learning to hunt as if it were a game, and a lake where humans still step aside for crocodiles. Nothing felt staged. Nothing felt like a performance. It was simply life, raw, direct, and honest. Night fell quickly. Insects hummed from every direction. The Hadza people continued talking around a fire, sometimes bursting into loud laughter. I didn't understand most of their language, but one thing was very clear. Out here in the wild, among hunts, simple meals, and ever-present dangers, they still lived with remarkable calm. And sitting beside that fire, I realized I wasn't just witnessing a hunting trip. I was witnessing a way humans have lived for tens of thousands of years, long before the modern world existed. The sunlight begins to spread across the Tanzanian savanna. In the Hadzabe camp, nothing begins with a call. It begins with very small movements.
That's okay. That's okay.
A group of men sit low on the ground. Bows resting against their sides. Arrows laid across their thighs. Each man lifts an arrow, slowly turning it between two fingers, checking its straightness, checking the sharp tip, lightly tapping the wooden shaft, listening to a faint sound. No one urges anyone else. A day in the forest allows no carelessness. When everything is ready, the men stand up. They walk in single file. They speak little, just a nod. The forest opens before them. A kudu is not easy prey to encounter. Even harder to approach. Its body is large. Its hearing is sharp. Always alert to the slightest change in wind and light. They do not walk fast. They do not search in haste. They read the forest, faint footprints, low broken branches, familiar paths leading toward open clearings. When the kudu appears, the moment is not loud. The man in front stops. He raises his bow. No one urges him on. The wind decides the rest. Not to display strength, but to end it cleanly, without prolonging the moment. As soon as the animal falls, the entire group moves closer. No cheering. No sense of victory. On some days, food comes from smaller animals, birds, squirrels, simple meals that require little preparation. There are also stories told when the fire burns low. Stories about crocodiles, creatures that live on the boundary between water and land. The Hadzabe do not seek crocodiles. They learn how to avoid them. They read sliding marks in the mud. They observe water that is unnaturally still. They know when it is time to turn back. Survival does not come from confrontation. In the forest, understanding boundaries is more important than displaying bravery. The kudu is taken into a temporary shelter, branches bent and arranged to block the sun and wind, just enough to process the meat carefully. Large portions of meat are tightly secured, carried on their backs. No one carries the load alone. The path back to the village is slower, heavier, but no one complains. At the camp, the fire is lit. Some of the meat is roasted directly over glowing embers. Other portions are placed into a pot, simmered with water and the wild tubers dug up earlier that morning. No recipes. No seasoning. Only time and experience. Women, men, and children sit in a circle. The food is shared evenly. No one asks which portion belongs to whom. They eat together. They eat enough. And they stop. As the sun sinks lower, the camp returns to a slower rhythm. No meat remains on the fire. No plans are made for tomorrow. Only one thing remains clear: they have lived this way for thousands of years, not because they are unable to change, but because they have found a way of living that is enough. 1. In a modern world that constantly demands more, perhaps what makes the Hadzabe extraordinary is not hunting, but the ability to know when to stop, and to share before storing away. The Hadzabe survive not because they live with less, but because they know when enough is enough. The Hadzabe do not have the concept of eating for pleasure. They eat so the body can continue to function. No multivitamins. No antibiotics. No supplements. What they have is an ecosystem, and the ability to accurately read what the body needs at any given moment. In Hadzabe life, hunting does not stand alone. It is one link in a chain of community healthcare. When a wildcat is taken down by a puck bow, it is slung over the shoulder, carried back to camp. What matters is not who made the kill, but how that energy is distributed correctly. There are days when food is not brought back to camp, not because of lack of time, but because the body needs energy immediately. Eat in the forest. Eat little. Eat enough. Not a feast, but part of the recovery cycle. What is remarkable, throughout this entire way of eating, there is no concept of eating to store fat. The Hadzabe body is sustained by alternation, days high in protein, days high in fiber, days with almost nothing but water and tubers. This constant variation keeps digestion, immunity, and metabolism flexible and adaptive. Water is just as vital as food. They do not search for water using maps. They read the land. Shallow underground veins are dug just deep enough for water to seep out. Not deep. Not destructive to the soil's structure. Water is used for cooking, for bathing, for days when the body needs cooling. They do not carry water far away. Because water, like food, should only be used where it is born. Sometimes, water does not come from the ground, but from trees. To outsiders, it is simply a massive tree. To the Hadzabe, it is a biological reservoir. From its trunk, they extract drinking water. Not to replace other sources, but to supplement the natural minerals the body needs during the dry season. Baobab trees are never exploited completely. No one takes more than what is needed for the day. Because the tree is also a living body. And breaking that balance will eventually return to harm humans themselves. In the stories that are passed down, the image of the rhinoceros sometimes appears. Not as prey, but as a boundary. The rhinoceros represents beings that humans are not permitted to touch. When a rhino enters their field of vision, it is a signal to stop, change direction, and remind one another, not everything that can be eaten should become food. In Hadzabe culture, knowing what not to eat is just as important as knowing what to eat. Because health does not come from maximizing nature, but from not exceeding its limits. Women take charge of the cooking. Not because of fixed roles, but because they understand best the bodies of children, the elderly, and those who are fatigued. The meat is never prepared using a single formula. Some days it is eaten immediately. Some days it is cooked longer. Some days it is kept for later. Not to store food out of fear of hunger, but to regulate the rhythm of eating according to the health of the entire group. For the Hadzabe, eating does not follow the clock, it follows the body's recovery cycle. No medicine, no clinics, yet they live, healthy, resilient, enduring. Not because they are lucky, but because they have never separated eating from responsibility to the body and to the community. The Hadzabe do not call this a diet. To them, it is a way of life. Eat at the right time. Drink in the right place. Use only what is enough. Before humans invented medicine, perhaps health was far simpler. And the real question is not whether we can live like the Hadzabe, but whether, amid countless modern choices, we still remember how to listen to our bodies before turning to medicine. That morning, as the sun had just begun to rise over the dry land surrounding Lake Eyasi, I realized something very unusual. No one in the camp knew what they would eat that day. There was no menu, no stored food, no plan for dinner.
Relatives.
For the Hadzabe, a meal is not decided the day before. It begins with a much simpler question: what will the forest give us today? And then they stand up. Not in a hurry. Not with worry. As if whether they eat or not is not something that needs to be controlled. The Hadzabe men leave the camp while the light is still soft. In their hands are handmade bows and arrows crafted from forest wood, natural fibers, and arrowheads so simple that, if placed in a modern sporting goods store, no one would believe they could hunt anything at all. But they carry something more important than weapons: their familiarity with the forest. They do not walk fast. They do not talk much. Most of the time, they simply observe. Hunting dogs move alongside them. No leashes, no verbal commands. They are not trained in the modern sense. They learn by growing up with humans, understanding the rhythm of footsteps, sensing when to stop, when to move faster. That relationship does not come from discipline, but from time. What surprised me the most was this: they do not set rigid goals. No one says, "Today we must hunt a monkey," or "We need big meat today." For the Hadzabe, small birds, wild rabbits, porcupines, honey, forest tubers, all are valid food. And if nothing appears, they accept it as well. In many cultures, hunting is an act of conquest. For the Hadzabe, it is a dialogue. They do not overhunt. They do not chase animals to exhaustion. They do not try to take enough. This acceptance is the foundation of their food culture. No stockpiling. No long-term preservation. No anxiety about the future. If the forest gives little today, the whole community eats little. If it gives more, they eat more. No one complains. No one keeps food for themselves. And then, when prey finally appears, the rhythm immediately changes. There is no cheering, only a few moments of silence. Any remaining food is always brought back to the camp. When the hunters appear from afar, the atmosphere in the community visibly changes. Women, elders, and children come out together. No one asks, who made the kill? Because that question does not matter. The meat belongs to everyone. At the camp, cooking remains as simple as possible. Meat is skewered and slowly roasted over the fire. When stewing is needed, the meat is cut into smaller pieces, both meat and organs placed into a large pot with water, then set over the fire. No marinating. No seasoning. Flavor comes from the ingredients themselves, the smoke of the wood, and time. People gather around the pot, eating directly, speaking softly. Even the hunting dogs receive their share, not as a reward, but as something natural. For the Hadzabe, dogs are members of the food gathering journey. Hadzabe cuisine is not meant to create variety or impress the palate. Its true value lies in relationships. Between people and food. Between individuals and the community. Between today and tomorrow. They do not store food. They do not control the future with refrigerators or long-term plans. They trust the cycle of the forest. And it is precisely this trust that has allowed them to survive sustainably for tens of thousands of years in one of the harshest environments in Africa. For modern audiences, especially those accustomed to supermarkets, menus, and endless choices, Hadzabe cuisine raises a reverse question. What happens when humans stop fully controlling their food sources and learn to trust their environment instead? On the African savannah, the Hadzabe showed that eating is not just about being full. It is a way of organizing society, a way of passing down knowledge, and a way of keeping the community connected. In a world driven by speed and technology, their meals around the fire remind us that sometimes, it is precisely the most primitive values, slowness, sharing, and knowing what is enough, that allow humans to live most securely. Imagine this, you are traveling back in time, 2 million years into the past. A moment when the ancestors of humankind first set foot on the savannah, learning how to survive in a raw and unforgiving world. You heard that right. In Tanzania, there is a community that still lives the way humans once did thousands of years ago. They hunt with primitive tools, gather roots and wild fruits. There is no trading system, no schedules, no modern economy. They are the Hadzabe tribe. How do they survive? And what can they teach us about the kind of life we may have lost? In today's video, we are not just observers. We step directly into one of the harshest survival realities on Earth, where every footprint, every arrow shot, is a lesson in freedom and primal resilience. Let's explore a day of survival with the Hadzabe people, and ask ourselves, in a modern world overflowing with convenience, what is the true source of human life? The Hadzabe do not farm or raise livestock. Hunting is their primary source of sustenance. Before each hunt, Hadzabe men, often considered the last true masters of survival in Africa, carefully prepare their tools. This preparation is not just practical, it reflects deep respect for tradition and for the wild itself. Their main weapon is the bow and arrow, handcrafted and refined through countless hunts. The bows are made from flexible, resilient wood. The arrows are meticulously carved, and some are coated with natural poison extracted from desert tree sap, powerful enough to bring down large prey such as wild boar, antelope, or even baboons with a single shot. Once the tools are ready and the moment is right, the Hadzabe hunters set off into the mysterious wilderness. Their hunt is a delicate balance of patience, strategy, and lightning-fast decision-making. Every step, every trace on the ground, is a potential clue. They move carefully, leaving no opportunity unnoticed. Silent coordination becomes their greatest strength. Without words, they position themselves to surround the prey from multiple directions.
Well done.
After hours of tracking, following footprints and listening intently to the faintest sounds, the hunters identify the trail of a large antelope. Then comes the decisive moment. A sharp release, the arrow flies. The shot lands true. But the hunt is not yet over. They must patiently follow the wounded animal, waiting for the poison to take effect. It is a race against time, and against other predators. This moment demands absolute courage and resolve. When the animal finally falls, the hunters pause to express gratitude to nature, before swiftly processing the kill and carrying their hard-earned prize back home. When the men return with their catch, the communal meal begins. The Hadzabe way of cooking reflects their ancient lifestyle, where hunting and gathering form the rhythm of everyday life. Everything that is gathered, meat, wild fruits, roots, is consumed on the same day. Food is shared equally among all. No one is left behind. Women prepare berries and tubers collected from the forest, while men clean the meat, remove the fur, and divide portions of baboon meat, using simple pans made from aluminum or iron. They cook the food into a communal meal, filled with the aroma of the forest, rustic, primal, yet deeply satisfying. When the meal is ready, everyone receives their share. They live in equality and generosity, values the Hadzabe cherish above all else. That shared meal marks the end of a long day of hunting and gathering, binding the community together through unity and gratitude toward nature. The hunter-gatherer life of the Hadzabe is not merely a struggle against nature. It is a testament to their intelligence, precision, and remarkable adaptability. From crafting bows and axes to seizing every hunting opportunity, every action reflects skill, experience, and deep respect for the natural world. They do not hunt out of excess or greed. They hunt with balance. They share. They live in harmony with their environment. It is this flexibility, strong sense of community, and gratitude toward nature that has allowed the Hadzabe to survive for thousands of years. Their way of life reminds us that true happiness and success do not come from accumulation, but from sharing, unity, and living in harmony with the natural world. Hello and welcome back to Tribal Earth Travel, the place where we explore the cultures and histories of tribes across the world. Today, follow me deep into the vast, harsh African savanna, where life and death stand only a heartbeat apart. There, I witnessed a rare and incredibly risky event, a direct confrontation between the Hadzabe tribe and the undisputed ruler of the wild, the lion. As the first rays of dawn struggled to pierce through the cracked, dry earth, a thunderous roar echoed from afar. That sound was not just the roar of a beast, it was a chilling warning, a merciless declaration that on this land, humans are not the only creatures born with the instinct of a predator. To most of the world, the lion is a legend, an icon of power, the apex of the food chain, the proud lord of the savannah. But to the Hadzabe, one of the last true hunter-gatherer tribes remaining on Earth, the lion represents something entirely different. To them, the lion is not always a revered symbol, sometimes, it is a real and immediate threat, a brutal test of survival that they must confront with courage and ancestral wisdom. Between the lion's brute strength and humanity's will to survive, a silent battle began. A heavy, solemn silence filled the air, for the Hadzabe hunters knew this was one of the most dangerous hunts of all. Against a lion, a bow and arrow must be more than sharp, they must be perfect. They inspected each bow, ensuring the animal's sinew strings were tightened to absolute precision. Then, they carefully reapplied poison. The toxin, extracted from the sap of the euphorbia plant, was reduced and thickened into a dark, potent layer on the arrowheads. This was their only hope, The arrow had to bring the beast down, or at least weaken it, as quickly as possible. Alongside the bows, they prepared long wooden spears to divert and distract the lion's attention, and sharp hunting knives strapped where they could be drawn in an instant, tools of last resort survival. Looking at these simple but meticulously prepared weapons, I realized, this was not a battle of technology, it was a battle of will and ancient survival knowledge. The sun climbed high, shining directly down on the fallen prey, a large antelope lying on the ground. But the feast had been interrupted. From thick brush nearby, a massive male lion emerged, its eyes burning with hunger and aggression. It growled, a deep, commanding sound that claimed unquestionable ownership of the kill. Fear was real in that moment, but I saw the Hadzabe hunters rise above instinct. They did not run. They stood tall, gripping their bows tighter. This was no longer just a hunt, it was a clash of wills. Two young hunters quickly drew their arrows, bows taut and ready. Meanwhile, the eldest hunter slowly stepped forward, spear in hand, eyes locked onto the lion's gaze. Their strategy was to overwhelm the king of beasts with fire and loud noises. The lion grew furious. It roared louder, baring its razor-sharp fangs. But just as it tensed to charge, an arrow was released. It flew lightly but landed with precision, striking a non-fatal spot, painful enough to ward, not to kill. The arrow wasn't meant to take its life, it was meant to draw a boundary. The standoff dragged on, tense and breathless. Finally, faced with the Hadzabe's unwavering resolve, their willingness to fight to the very end to reclaim what was theirs, the lion hesitated. It realized the price of this meal was far too high. With a growl of frustration, it turned away and disappeared back into the tall grass. Victory belonged to the hunters. I couldn't help but tremble with awe at their bravery and skill. It was a moment where human intelligence and determination overcame the strongest beast of the savannah. Through this encounter, it became clear that Hadzabe life is not about showing off strength. They chase lions only in extreme circumstances, when survival itself is threatened, or when the tribe's future depends on a bold decision. And I witnessed exactly such a moment. These intense clashes often happen for a very practical reason. Lions frequently steal the Hadzabe's hard-earned kills. Following the scent of fresh blood, lions boldly claim the prey that hunters fought and bled to bring down. In these rare and desperate situations, the Hadzabe must act. It is not only about reclaiming precious food. It is about asserting their place in the wild, proving that humans cannot be dismissed as weak. In those moments, they are not merely hunters, they are warriors defending their honor, their sustenance, and their ancestral way of life. The feeling was both awe-inspiring and spine-chilling.
Chicken. Bita hamai kau tasame amanako I upi ibai pi amana sa sobe ko te chokwa te be to kwa a ko ka ta na ko be ko ka ta be bawo
Nhìn ba chỉ chấm của ba sẽ ốp biển ya cái cục.
Ua. Kamana? Ko. Tamita seme ka ita kata fa pet ai.
da na tani aka bitan alle abi
Upaya.
okay
Ikaw ko et anak ko.
bamia te ko ba
With this bird,
After witnessing this life and death confrontation with a lion, I realized a profound truth about the Hadzabe. From a modern perspective, their lifestyle may seem lacking, but in reality, it holds a priceless lesson in simple abundance. They teach us that simplicity is not poverty, it is freedom from unnecessary material burdens. Without the weight of money, technology, or the obsession with possessions, people can direct their energy toward what truly matters: community, instinct, and survival. Facing the king of the savannah, the Hadzabe redefine courage and recklessness. Their bravery is not madness, it is calculated wisdom preserved through thousands of years. Their boldness is not blind, it is a measured resolve born from the need to protect their community's survival. And with that, our journey comes to an end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a like and share your admiration for the Hadzabe people.
Very sweet to the taste. The immature combs are usually lighter in the baby. There's the bees right there. Of course, you can see how small they are. Tiny, tiny, tiny.
to kaya ka kata ni ko ka pele pe chu ka bi ya botan
Thousands of years ago, nearly 2 million years into the past, humans survived solely by instinct, hunting and gathering to stay alive. There were no machines, no technology, no modern comforts, only instincts, fire, and the bond between humans and the land. Today, right here on the dry savannas of Tanzania, one tribe still lives exactly that way, the Hadzabe. In the remote Yata Valley, I watch them prepare for a new day. Every step, every glance reminds me, it is as if time has never touched this place. Today, I will follow them from their very first footsteps, joining their pursuit of wild game and witnessing the rustic meals prepared afterward. Where the primal flavors of wild meat blend with ancestral stories, with the essence of life, and with the deep connection between humans, the land, the forest, and the wilderness. A new day in the small village begins quietly. I see the Hadzabe preparing their bows, their arrows tipped with toxic sap gathered from forest trees. Everyone gets to work, readying the simple tools needed for today's hunt. The soft click of bowstrings fills the still air, a sign that the rhythm of the ancient forest is waking up. Have you ever imagined standing in such a place, where every breath blends with the wind, falling leaves, birdsong, and humans exist as a natural part of it?
Water guns, only wooden bows, carefully crafted arrow.
As dawnlight filters through the trees, we begin our hunting journey. The Hadza know the forest intimately. A broken branch, disturbed soil, a faint rustle of leaves, all become clues pointing toward where wild pigs, porcupines, or venomous snakes might be hiding. Watching them read even the smallest signs, I begin to understand the ancestral hunting knowledge forged over hundreds of generations, a perfect blend of memory, experience, and reflexes. When the prey reveals itself, arrows fly, and the hunt truly begins. Can you feel your own heartbeat quicken as you follow every movement?
So can I cut on a cook a pen and you can be a botano be cook create it. This is I can't check. I'm a panda. Zabatono koya ma kwa polampe.
Ola nakwe kwa ihe, ola nakwe kwa zaza. No.
As the sun sets and golden light spreads across the vast savanna, we return to camp. On the shoulders of the lead hunter hangs a baboon, the day's hard-earned prize, yet in their eyes, there is no exhaustion, only joy and deep gratitude toward Mother Nature, for today hunger will not enter the camp. The air glows with the flicker of firewood crackling beneath the flames. With only a few primitive tools, a stone knife, glowing embers, the animal is clean, chopped, and roasted directly over the fire. You can almost smell the charred meat, hear the fat sizzling as it drifts onto the coals, and feel the pulse of wildlife through their simple, practiced motions. Pieces of meat are passed around. No tables, no plates, everyone gets a share. This meal is more than survival, it is a ritual of connection to nature, where sharing, gratitude, and community spirit have been preserved through countless generations. Watching their careful, gentle gestures, I realize that ancestral wisdom has merged seamlessly with survival instincts. Every hot piece of meat is not just food, it is a symbol of life and of ancient culture.
Hey, then I can't talk about that and about to go baby, that told me. So, by me, you can't make out it and not pay you. Sila, Quabi Chesa, Tepot or Henna Sila.
In a modern world full of processed foods and technological convenience, have you ever wondered if such a primal lifestyle could still exist? For the Hadzabe, each hunt is not merely a quest for food, it is cultural identity, ancestral skill, and the glue that binds their community. They live slowly, simply, in harmony with the breath of the earth. Their food doesn't come from stores, it comes from respect for nature and from survival instinct. And perhaps it is precisely this harmony that allows the tribe to endure so sustainably in the wild. When you stand on the vast savanna, hearing the wind, smelling the smoke and roasted meat, you realize this is not just a meal. It is a journey into life, culture, and the primal instincts of humankind. In every shared piece of meat around the fire, in every berry collected from the deep forest, and in every joyful smile under the open sky, we see the Hadzabe symbol of profound philosophy, equality, sharing, and gratitude to the land. They live with nature, without possessing it, without competing with it, and in return, they receive fulfillment and peace of spirit. This is the invaluable lesson modern people like us need to reflect upon. In a world full of convenience and haste, we must pause to honor our roots, preserve cultural identity, and live in harmony with nature, for that is the most enduring value of humankind.
Morani,